If we don't achieve a 1.5 degree future, we will lose 99% of coral reefs. And the window to achieving 1.5 degrees is really within the next 10 years. People somewhere may think, oh, well, I don't live on a coral reef. It doesn't really matter to me so much. But if we let this happen to coral reefs, then it becomes a runaway train. The next tier of ecosystems are going to be impacted, a few decades after that. When you look back at records of coral cover, it's pretty much been stable up until around the 1970s. And I think in the 1970s, you started to see decline in heavily populated areas, large cities and tropical countries and so on. But it's really in the 90s, once we got these global mass bleaching events and climate change really started to show its head. With climate change, you have these huge, massive die-offs of corals that affects massive areas of reef. So you get these real big step declines in corals. And because of all the other threats, they don't fully recover. And then the next big bleaching event comes along and it ratchets down a little bit further, and so on and so forth. The basic threat to coral reefs is the same threat as to other global ecosystems. It's how we're degrading nature and fragmenting it and using species unwisely. And that happens because of the amount of consumption that we have as people, the high levels of energy that we use. So that's the carbon dioxide emissions. But also just the amount of energy enables us to transform huge swaths of landscapes and seascapes. So we really have to scale all of that down. In 2020, the Convention on Biological Diversity, so that's a global agreement that all countries have come to around how to look after nature, had a range of targets. These targets came due in 2020, and we didn't score very well. So now we're setting up a new range of targets for the next 10 and even 30 years for the global biodiversity plans. It's critical that we make sure that these new targets really address the challenges that are impacting on coral reefs and other ecosystems. We really need conservation to work where people are using reefs and where people are very highly dependent on them. Because if we can't get people in those places to protect them for their own good, then we will lose those reefs and we'll lose the remote reefs as well.